Okay, we are live. We will let the stream breathe just for a couple of seconds. You guys know the drill. Make sure it's nice and stable for our audience out there in the internet land. Welcome in, everybody, to the Huddle Up podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Overtime Media. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, we are back in the saddle together. Excuse me, my partner in crime. You know him, you love him. He is Zack Kelberman. Zack, this last week or so, you've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the Huddle Up podcast, with me gone on vacation one night and then having to go to a funeral the other night and just juggling a lot of balls in the air. And really appreciate you going the extra mile, my friend. It's good to see you again.
Of course, you got to do what you got to do. And Chad, family comes before everything else. And I'm happy that you can get away and tend to what you needed to take care of. And I'm always happy to hold down the fort. And hopefully people like the product that we put out. But I'm always glad to be back with you and having the normal kind of back and forth rotation that we have to we go through every 4 days a week.
Not a ton of Bronco developments in terms of news that hasn't been covered since last we had a podcast Thursday night. Of course, Zack holding it down solo. Not a whole heck of a lot has happened since then. There are a few topics I want to get to as it relates to your Denver Broncos, though. But we are moving into the true dog days of the NFL summer, and it's slim pickings when it comes to topics. So what we plan to do with the Huddle Up podcast and all the Mile High Huddle podcasts and live stream is, of course, we're going to have our topics. We're going to break down the roster. We're going to preview camp battles and things like that as we get farther into this summer. But we're basically logging in to talk to you guys, see what's on your mind, and we're going to get to what's on your mind here in just a few minutes. But Zack, being that it's Father's Day, I think it'd be fun to celebrate the day with our awesome listeners and the dads in Broncos country by asking you, most father sons, excuse me, frog in my throat, 1 second. Most father sons have some kind of football memory. If you're into football, there's a good chance. If you're a football fan, there's a good chance your dad had a big part to play in you becoming a football fan. So my question to you, just to get it open and up, and then we'll move into some actual topics here, and we'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts as well. People and super chats are showing up. Really appreciate the support this time of year, guys. It really means a lot to us. But Zack, I'm sure you have many, as I do. But what's a excuse me, poignant football memory that you have with your dad?
I lost my dad 4 years ago, so it's always a bittersweet occasion. But, thinking of the good memories and thinking of those football memories, what bonded us together, that's what always brings me happiness. So I have no problem delving into it. I just know for a fact I wouldn't be on here talking right now if it wasn't for him. I wouldn't be covering the NFL if it wasn't for him. You nailed it. Most guys that are into sports and hardcore football fans, they learn that it was an inherited trait from their fathers, more than likely. And I can definitely attest to that. Like I've mentioned, some people know this. I grew up a really, really diehard Jets fan. And you can, castigate me all you want. You can say what you want. My literal first memory is a 98 AFC title game, the Jets and the Broncos. The Jets had a lead at halftime, didn't really work out. So from an early age, I knew Jets misery. But ever since then, from that point on, as I can even walk and talk, it's always been around football. We were always sitting around the television. There was nothing I liked more as his son and him being my father than sitting on Sunday from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night watching football. So it's all good memories. I just know it's how it started. It wasn't too happy, but the overall picture, I thank him and I appreciate him for what he instilled in me, because it allowed me to not only have the love of the NFL as a hobby, I also made it into a career. So it's all good.
Yep. So much of what you just said I could echo. And by the way, it's anyone who's gone through the process of losing a parent, it's just the worst, man. And I feel for you. In fact, yesterday I lost my mom exactly 4 years ago. Well, in February it was 4 years, and it was her birthday yesterday. So it was, it's one of the ways I deal with grief personally is I just don't think about it. I lock that part of my brain away. I shut it off, and out of sight, out of mind. It might sound cold. It might sound cruel, but that's one of the ways I deal with the fact that I had to lose my mom. Well, yesterday, her birthday brought up some memories, and it was good to think about her and talk about her with family and stuff and whatnot. So I feel your pain on that, my friend, and appreciate you sharing some memories of and really how your dad influenced you. And again, I can echo a lot of that. The Broncos became are basically a big part of our family tradition. And the reason I even got into this business as digital sports journalism was because of my dad. Now he thinks I'm a weirdo. He thinks I've gone way up. He's proud of me. Don't get me wrong, but he thinks the things I remember, stats, he thinks I take it a little bit too seriously. But then again, because I'm so passionate about it and because I take it so seriously and I read football books and just stuff like that, I've been able to build and Mile High Huddle is a thing and it is what it is. So in that sense, he's very proud of me. But the one thing I remember, the number one memory I have with my dad when it comes to football is when the Denver Broncos finally won the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 32. So it was whatever it was, January, February of 98 is when it actually happened. And just him as a long-suffering Broncos fan, as a guy who, been cheering him on for many decades, living through the Orange Crush Super Bowl loss to the Cowboys, living through the 3 Elway Super Bowl losses in the 80s, and then finally victory, finally triumph against the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 32, and just how elated he was. Might have had one or two many drinks too many, you know what I'm saying? But he was out there. He was feeling it. He was celebrating, and so I'll never forget that.
And those will always be, no matter what you do in life, Chad, professionally or personally, some of the most fondest memories you'll ever have to look back on. And I can speak for you, I think, when I say that we can appreciate that, and that fuels us in the times that we do get sad and think about it, in times that we can't ignore it, we can't repress those feelings. Having those memories with our parents and our fathers is always going to be cherished. So I appreciate you sharing as well.
Yeah. I mean, and my dad, he taught me, I learned a lot from him about just kind of the, pushing boundaries. If you have a goal, well, figure out what it's going to take to achieve that goal, get out there and get it done. It's the only way to come close to making your dreams come true. Just kind of an entrepreneurial mindset my dad taught me, and that has informed me through everything that we've done with Mile High Huddle, with the podcast, with the whole 9 yards. So my dad, very strong influence on me. And of course I love him. He's probably not listening to this right now. He doesn't really care to watch football podcasts. Don't get me wrong, but we want to hear some of your memories, guys. And real quick, I want to get to a couple matters of business, but we got to grab Mark Langley, who so diligent in showing his support and love on Super Chat, and also bringing the funny, bringing the levity, keeping things light. Really appreciate that, Mark. Super Mark, as you know, my friend. He says, watching Garrett swirling all over the field, lost in his position, reminds me of a turd swirling in a toilet in a middle of a flush, leaving skin marks down the hashtag used toilet bowls, hashtag damn the stench, hashtag Garrett check your drawers, hashtag MHA. Hey, dude,
it gets better and better.
Bringing the funny. Starting to get even more descriptive. I could picture the skid marks, So yeah. Thank you, my friend. We really appreciate your support as always. All right. We want to get to what's on your guys' mind. Any memories or observations or anything about your dads, feel free to share it in the stream, and we'll see about getting to, like Dennis here. This is very cool. Dennis says, my dad took me to games 1975 watching Floyd Little. So you got a chance to see the franchise himself, the very first bona fide Bronco to make it into the Hall of Fame. That's a very cool memory, Dennis. And you're lucky to have a dad that's to help you kind of catch a piece of Broncos and NFL history. That's very cool. All right, real quick, guys. Let me do a couple quick matters of business. Even though we are in the dog days of the NFL summer, the podcast continues to grow. So we want to make sure all of our new listeners, all of our new viewers on YouTube, Facebook, etc., know how to connect with us, especially on Twitter. For those of you who were surprised, for example, that Friday, when as a site, MHH, we celebrated the day of Juneteenth, and so there was no Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast Friday night, and they made up for it, of course, Saturday morning. But some of you might have been surprised that there was no podcast. Well, if you're following at Huddle Up Pod on Twitter, you're not going to miss any of that kind of stuff, any announcements, programming. That's how you keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening with this show and all of the Mile High Huddle podcasts. And just to double up and make sure, you want to follow the mother account at Mile High Huddle. And gang, if you're in a position, check out huddleuppod.com, get your swag on. And Zach, I don't know if you saw this, just reminded me, I was going to bring this up today. Let me see if I can find it. Did you see that tweet from one of our great Super Chat superstars, No, not from Steven. Steven, we love you. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about from Jordan Johnson. Let me pull it up real quick.
Oh, I did the Father's Day card. That was so freaking cool. That's unbelievable. Amazing.
It's very, very poignant, and to me, a very powerful thing. I think our listeners who maybe aren't as active on Twitter, I think they'd appreciate seeing this. So I'm just going to show this to you guys really quick, and then we'll move on. But this is why we want you to connect with us on Twitter, on social media. Let me do this quick share screen really fast here. Grab Jordan. So he showed us the card, if you can see it here, that he received from his daughter for Father's Day. And in the card, let me click on it. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. And if, Zach, tell me if this grows, that you can see it better.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the card, his cute, sweet little daughter said, use this money for Mile High Huddle merch. And then in parentheses, tax too. And then, of course, her message to her dad. This card pretty much sums it up. Love you so much. And then, of course, she put a few dollars in there, and he sent that across my Twitter timeline, and I was very moved. And I said, no, dude, you tell her you're holding on to that coin, and I got a hat coming his way. So anyway, on us, Jordan, appreciate you sharing that with us. That helped make the day for us. So appreciate that. And gang, if you do want to get one of these hats, if you want to get a t-shirt, if you want to get a Mile High Huddle hoodie, a face mask, a Huddle Up podcast mug, little something for everybody, male, female, whatever, go to huddleuppod.com, get your swag on. And if you're not in a position to do any of that, it's all good. Just make sure you are subscribed, especially if you're on YouTube. Like this video wherever you're watching it live currently, or if you're watching it after the fact, be sure to like this video and then share it out if you really like and love what Zach and I are doing for you here at the Huddle Up Podcast. All right, let's grab a couple more supers, and then there's a couple of topics I do want to get to today. Let's grab Bronco Batman jumping in with a $5 super. Really appreciate that, and really dig your profile pic there, my friend, with the barbecue. He says, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out in Broncos country. Sorry I haven't been on much here lately, but love the channel. Keep up the great work, fellas. Appreciate that, my friend. And, it's like today, for example, it would have been really easy as myself being a family man. Zach's still living that bachelor lifestyle, still out there doing his thing. As a family man, it would have been really easy to cancel today's podcast or put it off and, we'll make it up down the road type thing. But we know you guys are ready. We know you guys are out there waiting for the podcast, waiting for the conversation, waiting for the content. And so we make time for it, set it aside. Not to say I didn't want to talk to you guys today, because I totally did, but it's this kind of support that makes us feel the pull to be here for you each and every night. So we really appreciate that. And here's Steven jumping in. By the way, that is a very cool Jerry Judy shirt that you showed us on Twitter. Congrats on getting that, my friend. Appreciate the super. He says, hi, guys. Hope your day was awesome. Go Broncos. Appreciate that.
Hope your day was good as well.
Mike Evans as well. Bonafide Super Chat Superstar. Appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Mike.
And I'll finish up. I got your last email, Mike, and I'll be following up on that. And then how about Zeus? Also a father out there in Broncos country, showing some love, very generous on Super Chat. He says, happy Father's Day. Appreciate you, my friend Stu. And as someone who's connected with Stu on social media, it's cool to kind of see pictures of you as a dad on social media. I'm not going to say anything, but very cool to see that. And welcome in too. And Mark here again, to another super. He says, what's up, my guys? What's up, Broncos country? Saying hello. So appreciate all you guys. It means the world to us when you show out like that. So Zach, one thing that I wanted to get your thoughts on here is a couple things. First and foremost, as we know, again, dog days of summer. Without OTAs, what has happened? Well, the Denver Broncos with Drew Lock kind of spearheading it, leading the way over the last, I want to say since mid-May, has been back in Denver. Might even be slightly earlier than that, like 1st of May. But he's been back in Denver now for many weeks, gathering the troops together, practicing in Denver area parks. And Zach, they've been operating the full offense, but just what was it? It was either Thursday or Friday. The NFLPA, their doctor guy, Tom, I forget his last name.
Mayer.
Yes, thank you.
I think
released an advisory basically saying that, hey, let's put the kibosh on player organized workouts away from the facility, because the word that shall go unnamed is spiking in certain parts of the country, and better safe than sorry. let's just stay isolated until training camp, which remains on pace and on schedule for now for July 28th. That sets the stage for, and it's an advisory. Obviously, players can do whatever they want. It's a free country. They don't have to necessarily listen to the NFLPA, although I would say that the vast majority of them do. But it kind of triggers the question of, what if something happens this fall? The season is either there's no fans. We talked about this quite a bit before on this podcast, but maybe there's no fans. Maybe the season gets cut into a portion of what it normally is. Whatever the case might be, the NFL is very much staring down the barrel of a potential significant revenue loss. And of course, if the NFL, by virtue of not being able to have fans in the stands, or if there are less games, which means less TV money, the whole 9 yards, how will that affect things? Well, we know it would force the salary cap to come down next year. Over these last, basically for, I don't know how many consecutive years, but it's many, the salary cap has increased each and every year by whatever. It's like 5% increase. Might be a little bit more than that. Don't quote me on that. Each and every year. But Zach, it's all based on revenues. So the NFL is an 800-pound gorilla. That $13 billion a year nut continues to grow each year, and that gets funneled to the salary cap for the players. That's how one of the ways, that the primary way they share in the revenue with the owners. But Zach, if the word that shall go unnamed significantly curtails revenue, the salary cap could come down significantly. I've seen some people spitball that it could come down by as much as 40%. Now, if that's the case, Zach, and the Broncos end up, same with all the other 32 teams, they would have some tough decisions to make. And first and foremost, and I want to get your thoughts on this. This is from an article from Bob Morris wrote on this very subject this past week. He said, quote, how it could affect the Broncos, quote, focusing on the Broncos, some might question whether the team might cut players with bigger contracts or cap hits. Players such as, now nobody get their panties in a wad, just bear with us, players such as Von Miller, A.J. Bouye, Kareem Jackson, Jarrell Casey, each have high cap hits with no guaranteed money in 2021. Juwan James has a high cap hit as well, with $5 million in injury-only guarantees. The Broncos could save cap space and cash by moving on from any of those players if they had to get under a now significantly lower cap. However, I suspect they will do so if their play in 2020 doesn't justify the cap hit. So that's the only way he sees it happening. That's been typical for the Broncos in past seasons. They keep veterans around as long as they play at a level that justifies the cap hit. So, and then one last thing. As for unrestricted free agents, the Broncos don't have any who are at this time considered high priorities to retain. You got Garrett Bowles might become a priority if he has a good 2020 season, but there's no guarantee. And then you got Todd Davis, Brandon McManus have played well, but aren't necessarily must retain players. Furthermore, what could happen with a slowed growth rate for the salary cap is that player salaries won't rise as fast. In other words, chances are you won't see a lot of players reset the market, except perhaps at quarterback. That's to the Broncos' advantage because they may not have to pay as much as expected for free agents they would want to sign in the future. So he goes on, and I would suggest, guys, you go and read this article. But do you see this as being a pressing issue that the Broncos need to start kind of preempting a little bit? Or do you think this is just one of those things where it's a bridge you cross if you get there?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that second line of thinking. I mean, teams plan for the here and now. They don't really plan for too much down the road, especially financially. I'm not pretending to be a doctor or an economist. I don't know where we're going to be in 2021, but I'm assuming that by then we'll have a vaccine. It will be under control, and this will, by next year at this time, be kind of a thing of the past, and teams can start operating as normal. Now, in the meantime, no fans in the stands, concession losses, revenue losses. It's going to be tough for this season. I just don't think it's going to have a long-ranging impact beyond next year. I think for the here and now, teams could give second thought to handing out big mega deals. I think for the Broncos case, they would be wise to lock down Justin Simmons now and not wait until next offseason or later in the season when his price will rise up. It will impact players in that aspect, but it's not going to have this damaging, irreparable effect like you see in baseball or the NBA. The NFL is so profitable. It's a cash cow. It's America's pastime. The new TV deals are kicking in. The new CBA is kicking in. And yeah, this issue right now is a setback, and it's going to hurt a little bit. But in the long term, considering how profitable teams and the leagues are, or this league specifically, I don't think it's going to have a long-ranging impact. That's just my opinion, though.
And what's the worst that could happen? I mean, if indeed the salary cap due to revenue losses was to drop by as much as 40%, and suddenly the Broncos have more money on the books than they have legal room to spend, there's only one option, and that is going to the players and asking them to take a step back this year with the expectation that by the time you get to the football season of 2021, everything will be back to normal and we can get back to business as usual. That's the worst that could happen. Now, I really tend to concur with Zach on this. This is a bridge you cross if and when you get there. We still don't know exactly how this season is going to unfold with regard to the word that shall go unnamed. Different parts of the country, it's spiking. You've got little outbreaks here and there, and it's something to monitor. It's something to pay attention. We hope everybody's being safe and responsible and minding their hygiene, just like we learned in March, all the things to start paying close attention to. But honestly, Zach, if the worst case scenario is that this season plays without fans in the stands, if that's the worst case scenario, the NFL still stands to make a ton of money with TV rights, merchandising, the whole 9 yards. Now, the thing that I would worry about, to be honest with you, without fans in the stands, as much as that would suck, I worry about the little economies in each of these 32 NFL cities that are built up around fans being at the stadium on a Sunday, a Thursday night, or a Monday night. People's jobs, people's livelihoods that are dependent on that, not to mention businesses that are dependent on it. So that's what I worry about. And that's why, again, I'm inclined to believe that the NFL, who has continued to stick to their guns with regard to all their dates, they haven't moved off one date yet. They didn't move off free agency. They didn't move off the draft. They didn't move off OTAs, holding OTAs at least virtually. They could have just bagged it and said, well, we'll get there eventually. Training camp remains on pace for July 28th. And I think in a worst case scenario too, teams might have to consider some kind of a protocol, Zach, during the season where, look, you have to kind of live in a bubble. You have to sign some kind of but you have to agree to some kind of parameters where, you don't get to go to clubs on Friday night, or you don't get to go out and necessarily socialize. You have to stay at the team hotel, and the price you pay is, you're getting paid many millions of dollars. And if not, even if you're low man on the totem pole, many hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're willing to make those sacrifices to your social life, to your personal life, being, only your family you can see face to face in order to continue to play this game that you love and get paid, become a very wealthy and rich person. So if that's the worst thing that could happen, I still see plenty of paths and plenty of roads for there to be an NFL season. And that's if worst case, there's no fans in the stands.
There's going to be a season. I think that's a foregone conclusion based on how the NFL has operated this entire offseason. But you were dead on. I mean, the upper class, the athletes, the general managers, the coaches, guys making $1 million plus every single year, they're not going to be hurting so much. It's the middle class. As usual, they're the ones that they're going to get screwed by this. They're the ones that are losing money. They can't operate their businesses. So yeah, in those 32 NFL cities, Monday through Saturday, when there's not games on, they're going to be standing to lose a lot of their income, a lot of their revenue. That being said, though, I just can't see a bubble working. It's not like the NBA. I touched on this on the last pod on Thursday. It's not like the NBA where it's a very limited group of employees, of players, of coaches, of trainers. The NFL, it's 60, 70 people at any given moment. You can't keep them in a bubble. One thing I read was testing them Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then they travel Saturday. They stay home Saturday if they have a home game. I'm thinking, what if they catch it on Friday? What if they catch it Saturday? The NFL has to prepare for the inevitability of players catching it and having some sort of workaround, some sort of IR list, some sort of contingency plan. Remember, though, when they did the schedule, they put it in place where it's interchangeable at any given time. So they've prepared for this. They want to have a season. They know there's going to be a season. And I think based on the Kareem Jackson, Von Miller, Ezekiel Elliott, this is inevitability. It's not just a hope and it's not just a wish. The players are going to get it. Fans are going to get it. It's going to happen. And they just have to, maybe by then, maybe if they all get it now and in July, come September, we all have immunity to it, herd immunity. I'm not a doctor. I'm not spouting off science takes. I just think that's one. Zach. Right. Yeah. I don't want to, get bashed for being too positive, but it's one thing that could happen. And I think the NFL is looking at any alternative or plan. But by far and away, fans or no fans, crowd noise or no crowd noise, there's going to be a season in September.
I just want to share this memory that Stu mentioned here of his dad. He says, I remember watching The Drive with my dad when I was living up at Idaho Springs in Colorado.
That's awesome.
And that was a very cool memory. I also have some special memories of that era as well. Mark jumping in to say Happy Father's Day on Super Chat. Really appreciate you again,
Same
Mark.
to you, Mark. Thank
and
you.
Akeem, this is a new face, a new name that I don't recognize in our Super Chat. It's good to have you, my friend. Welcome and thank you. He says, I've been watching you guys for a while. Thank you for being a great Broncos fan because I live in Louisiana and we don't have too many. Yeah, you're down in the Saints neck of the woods. And Christy, thank you. Happy Father's Day to you, and not to you, but to yours, to the fathers in your life. Steve again, jumping in, $5 super. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steven.
Getting rain where I live. Looking forward to Madden 21 and looking forward to the football season. It's going to come in one form or another. And, there are going to be pitfalls with this season that are going to be very unique to this year of 2020, but I'm confident that the NFL is going to be able to navigate them. And here's Terry jumping in up in Canada, proving as always, the Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is a state of being. He says, my dad is a Bears fan. But you know what, Terry, I would be willing to bet your dad somehow influenced you becoming a Broncos fan by virtue of some kind of an interest in football. Maybe he made you play football. It's like my son, for example. I have 3 sons, but only one of them really cared to play sports. I made them all try sports, but only one really continued to want to play sports. And he loves football. That's his favorite sport, even though the sport he's the best at is basketball. He loves playing football. And I think it's because he knows I love football. And so he wants to do the things that he sees his dad do. And I'm sure, just going back to what you said there, Terry, there was probably some sort of an influence with your dad. Maybe I could be wrong. You could be the exception, but I know a lot of guys right now are nodding their heads, having dad, make them play tackle football and, resisting it at first and then loving it and being glad that their dads made them play tackle football. KP jumping in with the $5 super. Appreciate you.
KP trolling as usual.
I got to read this one first here. Chad, let's not say the B word. Hashtag book. It's almost like the name that should go unmentioned.
Oh, man.
Speaking of which, I decided to, I do read a lot of books that are on football that have nothing to do with the Broncos. And so with the idea of having a little book club segment each week, I thought, well, the best way to kind of break our listeners into that kind of a thing is to start with a Bronco book. So I am rereading Nate Jackson's Slow Getting Up. And I've already highlighted a few sectors. Later this week, I'll break that out. We'll discuss them. Really interesting stuff from the late Mike Shanahan era in Denver. We're going to get to that later this week. And then Christy showing some love.
Queen.
So consistent, the queen of MHH. Appreciate you so much, Christy. And let me see here. Whoop, just did a jump. Bear with us one second here. Let me scroll back up. Hopefully we got Bwana on this one. We're good. Actually, we're good. We're good. Terry, here's a $2 super for my brother, Bronx Legend. And Bronx Legend is a legend, by the way. And he actually said something on Twitter today that made me kind of do a double take, made me rethink one of my own takes. And that's one thing that's really cool about actual conversation, actual dialogue, talking to one another, is that if you actually most people when they listen, Zach, they don't listen to listen. They listen to reply, or they listen to respond instead of listening to try to understand. And that's only exacerbated and intensified on social media. And something Bronx Legend said to me today actually made me realize something that I'm not going to get into today because it's not right now anyway. It's not necessarily a football topic, but Bronx Legend is the man. Here's Gary Palmer jumping in down in Yuma. Appreciate you, my friend. He says, happy to catch a live one. You guys rock. Denver Broncos for life.
Thank you, Gary.
Zach, I don't know did we talk about the last week? Last week was a blur for me because of what was going on in my family with my wife's grandmother passing away. Did we talk about Daniel Jeremiah's 40 times study and how the Broncos seem to have closed the gap with the Chiefs?
I don't think we did.
I don't think we
did the ranking of the skill group, and they were 10th, and the Chargers were 6th. I think that's the only thing along those lines that we did.
So let me do a quick share screen because you guys are going to want to see this, and then we'll get back to the chat stream here in just one second. But hopefully you guys can see. I'm going to try and make it bigger. This is Daniel Jeremiah. What he said is we pulled 40 times for every team in the league and projected their lineup in 11 personnel, which is, of course, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wideouts for the 2020 season. Here are the 5 fastest groups in the league based on 11 personnel, so 3 wide sets. The Giants are at the top of the list, Zach, at averaging 4.42 second speed. Then the Chiefs and the Broncos are tied at number 2. So the Broncos, from a pure speed perspective, closed the distance with the Chiefs, followed by the Panthers and the Texans, tied respectively at 3. How much does this matter, Zach?
Not a lot. I mean, the 3 of those teams on the list are terrible. It's nice to be in the same breath as the Chiefs, but speed is one thing. It's not the end-all, be-all, and they have to prove it. They have to do more things than just run really fast. It's cool to go over right now, and it's nice to see the Broncos finally have that juice on offense they've been seeking for so long. But when you consider the Giants are ahead of the pack there, it doesn't equate to winning or success. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, just ask John Ross how much just pure speed really matters to the game.
Al Davis.
That's exactly. You just took the words out of my mouth. Ask Darius Hayward-Bay how much. Now, look, so long as it's in the hands of a football player, because there's a difference between a guy just being fast and a guy actually being a football player. And as long as it's in the hand, that speed is within the possession of a true football player, passionate, serious pro, and with the right quarterback and in the right scheme, that's when, and it sounds like a lot of stars need to align in order for that speed to really pay dividends for a team. And I think they are aligning for the Denver Broncos with regard to Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant. You've got, of course, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. You got the 2 running backs, and then you've got the trigger man. Is Drew Lock going to take that step forward in year 2 and really he doesn't have to blow the doors down in terms of being that next second-year guy to take the league by storm like we've heard Colin Cowherd talk about a few times, and him believing that he's the guy that's going to pop this year. I think there's a good chance that that's how it shakes out, but he doesn't even need to be that in order for this offense to really close the gap with the Chiefs. He just needs to be a point guard that walks that razor's edge of pushing the ball down the field while also not being too reckless with the ball.
I said it when Trevor Siemian got the starting job, when they traded for Keenan, when they traded for Flacco, based on the surrounding offensive talent, they don't have to, and with the defense, they don't have to be all-star. They don't have to be MVP. They don't have to be Pro Bowl. Just be above average. Just be good. Just be reliable. Don't make mistakes. Don't put your defense in bad situations. Put some points on the board. Take some time off the clock and let your defense do the rest. And that especially applies to Drew Lock because he has so much talent around him. He has so much talent on his own right, and also a great defense and a great coaching staff. He doesn't have to be the MVP this year, and I don't think he will be, but he doesn't have to be. Just be reliable. Just take that next step forward as the Broncos project. Trust your coaches, trust your playmakers, and the Broncos will be fine, Chad.
Pobby jumping in with a very, very generous super chat on Father's Day. It's very humbling, and we thank you so much, Pobby, for showing us that love. And I just realized that today, thumbing through Twitter, that Pobby's selfie that she has here in her YouTube profile pic here is still pinned at Huddle Up Pod on Twitter. So, Pobby, we appreciate you. Thanks for kind of repping the brand for us on social media. She says, Happy Father's Day to all the fathers in Broncos country. Celebrating Father's Day with my dad tonight. Love, MHH family. Go Broncos. Pobby, give your best to your dad from us, and thank you so much for your support. It means everything to us.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Here's Big E Bronco. Says, MHH is the only 7-day-a-week pod, the best out there. They are there for us when we're on the mountain, or in the valleys. Okay, whether on the mountaintops or in the valleys. That's right, dude. You're using some of the same things, the same kind of verbiage that we talk about on this podcast, and we appreciate that. It would be easy to just, come to you guys right now, for example, and say, hey, look, we're in the dog days of summer. There's not much happening. Zach and I, we're going to go from 4 nights a week with you to 2 or 1. We're going to cut out some of the other pods because there's just not, there's no football happening. There's no free agency. There's no moves. There's no draft to look forward to or to talk about. But we're not going to do that. And it's because of your support, and it's because of we have you in mind. That's the truth. Like we want to be here for you and provide this outlet for you each and every night. So thank you. James here. Already the NFLPA is advising players to not group at all. Could have huge ramifications for the Broncos in particular. It could, and I'll be curious to see how much guys like Drew Lock and the players under his influence or purview, that how much they listen to that NFLPA bulletin that came out Thursday or Friday, whatever day it was. I'll be curious to see. All right, bear with me one sec here. Oh my goodness.
Two thoughts, Chad, real quick before we get to that. We've seen so many valleys and not a lot of mountains. I'm ready to see mountaintops, first of all. Second of all, if the Broncos, and I had a thought about this while you're reading that question, if they're so concerned with saving money for the long term, why not cut some guys like Jeff Hireman now and pocket the money and start to stash away? So I don't think that the NFL teams or general managers or shot callers are as worried or as panicked as the media would lead you to believe. Just my little quick, lukewarm take on that.
The problem with it, too, is you can feel the pressure mounting in the media and from the blue checkmark brigade out there on social media, especially with what Fauci said early last week. Like, the NFL is going to have to do what they did with regard to the draft and free agency. They're going to have to move forward and be willing to take the fiery darts of criticism. It's going to come. It's going to happen. I think that they're big enough and strong enough to withstand it and overcome it and get out there, have a season, have something out there for the fans. Gang, 2020, we need it. This whole year has been nothing but a valley. You want to talk about mountaintops, you want peaks and valleys. 2020 has been nothing but a bottomless valley. And the NFL can help us climb back out of that. So here's Christy jumping in with a very, very, very generous super. And, of course, a symbolic super, as she is often wont to do. She says, hey, guys, you are making a great Father's Day for a lot of people right now. I hope you can enjoy the rest of the day. Appreciate that, Christy. That means the world to us. And
you're the queen.
This is right. James, thank you. I couldn't remember who it was that was projecting that figure. Andrew Mason projecting a $40.8 million loss in cap space per team. Broncos will probably look to roll over $10 million, moving their cap space from an effective $55 million for 2021 to about $2 million with 47 on the roster. I'm not sure. I kind of got lost at the bottom of that one there, but still, that's the 40.8 is what I want you guys all to focus on. That's what Mason is potentially projecting as could be here she is again, showing the love on Super Chat with another symbolic number. Y'all recognize that number? That's right, Frank Tripucka. That's exactly who you were thinking of, wasn't it? All right. Queen. Thank you, Christy. We appreciate you so much. Oh, uh-oh. Bwana, Christy making sure Zach can buy some medicine to fix his cold.
Listen, I'm good otherwise, but I get on here. I don't know what it is about the potting chat. It just makes my nose kind of come a little unglued. Not to get nasty about it, but that's why you see me doing this. I'm still not over it, but
you go from doing your thing all day, because it's not like you don't talk during the day, whoever you're in. But there's a big difference between just like normal life conversation to having a spotlight on you and actually speaking and projecting for an hour. So all of a sudden, if you are congested and stuff, it starts coming out. But here's Christy keeping it balanced. She's got to throw some love in, repping Drew Lock.
That's so cool.
And the Duke of Denver himself.
Thank you so much, Christy. That's amazing.
Means everything to us. Thank you so much. All right, let me see here, guys. I know it is kind of a weird pod because it is Father's Day. We wanted to have a Father's Day focus, and it's great to spend this time with you guys. Again, not a lot of news to analyze. So if there is anything specific on your mind, get it out there, and we will address it. Maybe we end up making this podcast a little bit shorter than usual. Maybe not. There's still a few other things. Okay, here we go. Christy, I watched the Broncos with my mom, and she is and was the best father a girl could ask for. That's very cool. That's a very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I bet there are a lot of people out there right now nodding their heads that can relate to that on some level. Sounds like you had one heck of a mom, and you're very, very lucky to have her. Thank you for sharing that. Jody wants to know, why are the protests okay for tons of people to gather, but not an NFL game?
Careful, Chad.
You guys
Don't get
really
too
want to get me
political now.
started on this?
Yeah.
Jody, there should be no difference, right? If it's either a threat and it's either a problem for gatherings, mass gatherings, or it's not. Hopefully, I'll just say this. I don't want to go down that road. I'll just say this, Zach, let's just hope. Look, June 21st today, as we are streaming this live, training camp is 5 weeks from now. A lot can happen in a positive sense. A lot can change between now and then. So we're going to focus on optimism and positivity and hoping that everything shakes out the way it should. That's not to be, put our head in the sand, but unfortunately, simple issues like health, the V word, or we'll just say a pandemic, it falls somehow, and it happened really quickly, but it falls on political lines. You cannot talk about this topic without somebody getting pissed off, someone feeling like we could tender an opinion on whatever it might be, and someone go, "Oh, you're just stumping for Donald Trump," or "Oh, you're just one of these bleeding hearts." It doesn't matter. I've seen accusations on both fronts. People think they know exactly what our opinions are, and all we're talking about is something as non-political, Zach, as a pandemic. This has nothing to do with politics, and yet, for whatever reason, I think the media has a lot to do with it.
Yes,
it has broken and fallen along those lines.
Everything is nowadays, Chad. Literally, you can argue apples versus oranges and it become a political issue. It's just the scope of the world now with social media, and everyone has a platform. And not to air my personal opinion, it shouldn't be politicized. It shouldn't be that way, but it's just the harsh reality of what life has become.
Was your husband TG?
Wow.
No, say it ain't so. TG,
What happened?
We all know TG. We all know who this is. Bona fide member of the community. Super chat superstar. Zach, we were just talking about it was either you and I, or it was you and I and John Bwana Beast. We're saying, hey, it's been a minute since we've seen TG. Bwana,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Hi guys, my husband loved you guys. He's no longer here with us. I have been trying to catch you live to let you all know. Damn it.
What happened? If you don't mind sharing. I mean, he was such a valued member of our community, and he was always around, and we just, like you said, we just talked about him. My mind is kind of blown right now. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. We have been wondering about him, and we don't mean to pry. If you don't want to talk about it in a live stream, do us a favor and send us an email if you wouldn't mind, and let us know what happened. That's private. We can keep it private if you don't want to share what's going on. milehighhuddle@gmail.com. Let us know what happened, and if there's anything we can do to help, by all means, please let us know. TG was very supportive of Mile High Huddle, and so anything we can do to support you, please let us know. Please let us know. Gio jumping in, showing love on Father's Day. Very generous, as always, my friend.
Thank you, George.
Happy Father's Day, Broncos country. I remember the look on my father's face when I came inside after going out in the snow and pouring 2 bottles of champagne over my head after winning our first Super Bowl. Priceless. That's cool, dude. That is very cool. Out in the snow with champagne, celebrating the Broncos, finally bringing home the Lombardi. That's a special moment, dude. I bet you'll never forget that. Terry jumping in again. Thank you, Terry, to say, I helped teach my dad how to skate. Grandpa taught me. Hashtag state of being. Hashtag Broncos world. Now, are you talking about skateboarding? Are you talking about like hockey skating, ice skating? I'm curious what kind of skating, just for what it's worth. It's cool to learn about everyone's lives here. Zyka showing some love on Super Chat. Appreciate you, my friend. Happy Father's Day to everybody. But I got to stick up for Bowles a little. He's definitely not great, but he's had Keenum and Flacco so far and looked his best for Locke. He's just become the Broncos' fall guy. Hey, you're right. He's not had it easy in terms of protecting for an upper echelon level quarterback. He did look better down the stretch. It is no coincidence that Drew Lock was the quarterback for most of that stretch in which Bowles really looked good. I think from the bye on, he only relinquished 5 pressures, if I'm not mistaken, and he only relinquished 1 sack on Drew Lock from week 13 on. So there is reason to be optimistic, Zyka, and I tend to concur with you that some of the hate Bowles gets is a little out there in left field, although I do understand that there's been some just mind-blowing, you got to be kidding me type moments of recidivism by one Garrett Bowles.
I'm not exonerating him because he had Flacco and Keenum as his quarterbacks, and his little stretch last year doesn't overwrite the last couple of years of ineptitude that he's had. But I will say I've been watching a lot of Broncos film lately, a lot of the Drew Lock games. I put some clips out on Twitter, and I have noticed that Bowles looked light years better, night and day better than he did in the previous weeks. And that could be a product of Drew Lock just energizing the offense. Maybe the light finally clicked. He has to prove that for an entire 16-game schedule, though. You can say what you want. You can have optimism. He has Munchak, better offense, but he has to prove it on a snap-by-snap and a game-by-game basis. I don't think anyone can dispute that.
You got your wish, Zach. Leroy's bringing up the Woody Paige article. We were going to talk about this at the top of the show, but then we went down the rabbit hole of Father's Day, and we ended up forgetting about this. But Woody Paige suggests, here's Leroy, that we sign Cam Newton because we have one of the worst quarterback situations in the league. What are your thoughts, guys? Zach, go ahead and you open this one up.
I couldn't believe when you told me that was Woody Paige. I mean, I respect his opinions and his analysis and his inside information. He's been spot on with the Broncos the last couple seasons. I don't know. I mean, we talked about this off air. It could be a product of nothing going on right now, and everyone kind of has to sell their own stories, get their own clicks. There's no reason, though, they should sign Cam Newton. I mean, literally zero. He's not the same player that he was. The Broncos, you can argue, ruined his career. He's been out of football for a while. There's a reason why he's still on the free agent market. They have a young hotshot in Drew Lock, who Woody Paige endorsed, by the way. They have a backup to him. They have some young players. It would just add more baggage than it would be useful. I mean, literally, I could expect that from Adam Rank or Nick Wright, some other hot take artists, but from a guy like Woody Paige, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, do you really want to take the spotlight off of Drew Lock? Think of the distraction it would be bringing in Cam Newton, because he is, former number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, former league MVP. It's been a while since he was that level of a quarterback, and it's mostly been due to injuries, although, as Zach said, he simply hasn't been the same guy since Super Bowl 50. But still, even if you brought him in and you said, you guys, we need to upgrade the backup. I mean, we're talking about Jeff Driscoll being the guy standing in between the Broncos winning games and the entire season being lost if something happens to Drew Lock. And I get what you're saying, but that distraction would completely overshadow and take away from Lock being the guy, from Lock being the focus. It's just not a bridge you want to cross. I think it's one of those examples, Zach, of it being the dog days of summer, and media needs something to talk about. It's just we live in the belly of the beast when it comes to digital sports media. We understand the thinking, we understand the motivations, and I think that's probably the best way to explain this particular article from Woody. But
also,
go ahead.
Real quick, why would Newton even want to be a backup? Why would he settle for that? If he was a starter, he was a league MVP, he was a superstar just a few years ago. Why would he come into a non-playoff team and be behind a guy who's a first-year starter? He would want a starting job. Yeah. So no situation in any scenario where he would come to Denver. I don't know why he even brought that up.
And he'll hold out till he gets that opportunity. He just doesn't play in 2020.
Right.
But maybe he waits to see how the training camp dust settles, because there are some spots that right now they have it, penciled in as a starter. But if they don't live up to snuff, they might go, dang, man, we need to upgrade. Hey, Cam, you want to come in and be the starter? By the way, Mike D jumping in with your bad breath onion rings. That's a handle.
Great name.
Very unique handle, my friend. He says, with a very generous super chat. Appreciate it. He says, can't wait to see the mismatches we create on offense this year. Hoping coaching is creative enough to take advantage of our weapons. Is Pat Shurmur more Dan Reeves or Mike Shanahan? That's a really good question. He's definitely more Mike Shanahan. Dan Reeves was an excellent head coach. Got his team to the top of the mountain, couldn't quite get to the summit, but I mean, what did he lead? 3 Broncos teams to the Super Bowl, plus the Falcons. And it was just so sad that the other team he led, the Falcons, had to lose to the Broncos in the Super Bowl. But nevertheless, Dan Reeves was an excellent head coach. Pat Shurmur, terrible head coach. Very good offensive coordinator, very good quarterback whisperer, not a head coach for this league. I doubt he'll ever get another opportunity. It's very rare in the modern league that coaches get a third swing at the plate when it comes to head coaching gigs. But creative speaking, he is more of a sprout off of the Andy Reid coaching tree. But it all has its basis in West Coast offense, including the Mike Shanahan. Now, Mike Shanahan's ended up weaving in zone blocking as a big staple of the offense and much more vertical striking through the play action game, which is why Kyle Shanahan, he actually takes exception to the notion that his father's offense was West Coast, because the whole point of the West Coast passing game, anyone that's learned or read up on Bill Walsh, is that he viewed the passing game as an extension of the running game. So a lot of horizontal passes, a lot of short passes. That's what, and you're basically nickel and diming your opponent with high percentage passes down the field. That's what Joe Montana made a career out of. And then eventually when you lull them into kind of a sleep, that's when you go over the top to Jerry Rice. That's the West Coast. And Kyle Shanahan, Zach, he gets really upset when you call his father's offense the West Coast, but in a very literal sense. He's right. But if you boil it down to the actual source and inspiration, Mike Shanahan is a spring off of the Bill Walsh tree if you go back far enough. And so is Andy Reid if you go back far enough through Mike Holmgren. So I don't want to bore you guys on it, but I think Shurmur is definitely more Shanahan than he is Dan Reeves.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I thought it actually meant Kyle Shanahan at first, but then it was, Dan Reeves or Mike Shanahan. And Reeves was a little more, way more predictable. And I don't think Shurmur is that. If anything, he takes chances. He has a vertical style offense. He knows how to maximize his quarterback's talent. To me, like you said, and you nailed it, Chad, he's way more Mike Shanahan than he is Dan Reeves. But I'm messed up from the TG news, Chad. I had to do a double take when I read that. It's so sad.
Yeah,
I can't believe that.
It's one of those things where you get a piece of news like that and it stuns you and it shocks you. And in a live setting like this, it makes you just want to go, man, and contemplate. But we have to keep the conversation going. So for TG's significant other, please don't take the fact that we are moving on with the conversation as anything other than us just keeping the show going for our listeners. Everyone is stunned to hear that about TG. And I want to check real quick here to see if she came back in to give us any details. Hopefully, I'm not seeing anything from her. So hopefully she reaches out on, maybe she can email us or something. Hopefully she heard that, Zach. But let's grab this from Discount Audio and Wheels, our friend DA Dub. Hope the store's doing well, my friend. Very generous, super. Appreciate you. Cool. He says, Happy Father's Day to all in Broncos country, getting the message out.
You as well.
Yes. I was just checking a quick message there from Bwana Beast. He's not seen anything from the TG account. Man, that just is such a bummer to hear that.
If she's listening, they'll just know that we have him in our thoughts and prayers for sure. And thank you for passing that along, even though it's obviously not ideal news.
Glenn Hauser jumping in, showing some love, one of our Super Chat superstars.
Thank you, Glenn.
Watching the Broncos with my family growing up was an amazing experience that I now do with my wife and our girls. Hashtag HFD MHH country. Hashtag state of being. Happy Father's Day is what he's saying to everybody. Appreciate that. That's cool, man. That's cool. I'm sure your girls will have a unique and appreciation for football and the Broncos that they will always connect. That's what I figured. But I wasn't sure, dude, because, I wasn't sure. Hockey is what it is. Up there, it is the main sport in Canada. So Terry was talking about ice skating. That's cool. Were you a hockey player? I'm curious to know. I mean, at what level did you stop playing hockey is probably the better question, because everyone plays hockey up north of our border here. All right, guys, we're getting close to our normal signing off time here. If you have any specific questions on Broncos, get them in now. Otherwise, we'll sign off a little bit earlier tonight than we might normally, and we will check you back here tomorrow night, same time as usual. And hopefully Monday serves us up some talking points and whatever they might be, some Bronco related nuggets that we can all chew on and discuss here together. Robert saying Shanahan was a run pass. He had TD, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, and Shannon Sharp. Yes, he was. Let's see. James Campbell, thank goodness run, pass has gone. Almost every down and distance should be a passing down right now. There was an interesting graph that Nick Kendall shared showing expected win percentage added per rush. It is a very different league than it once was. That's for that, I'm sure. KP jumping in again. Appreciate you, my friend. He says, my dad was a Raiders fan. I emancipated him legally.
That's funny.
Enjoy 1983, Pops. Yeah. That's basically, it's either 83 or 02, or was it 03? 03 Super Bowl, right? When they got to lost to Chucky and the Tampa Bay Bucks in 03. But that was the last time that I can remember the Raiders being good, was that Super Bowl season. I know they got to the playoffs that 1 year with Derek Carr, but Derek Carr was hurt by the time they got there. And it was Connor, what was his name? Connor Cook is who had to start. And he just got brutalized in that divisional round playoff. But they didn't, let's see, what was that? 2016. So that was, did they win the division that year?
Yeah, the Broncos didn't win it. I don't think the Chiefs won it. I think they went 9-7 or 10-6. I think the Raiders won it. That was their only playoff year since 03, 02.
Could be right. Gary Fryer. Hi, Gary. Your name on Super Chat is not one that I recognize, so it's good to see you. And
Thank you,
we
Gary.
really appreciate you. Keep coming back, man. Be a part of the community, and it's good to have you here with us. He says, longtime Broncos fan, because my dad, who is from Salina, I don't know, endured all Super Bowls. First time I saw my dad cry was watching the Broncos beat Favre and the Packers. I'll keep watching from the great Pacific Northwest. Hashtag state of being. Hashtag WAST. WAST.
Washington State, I think.
There you go. See, I need my translator over here, my interpreter. But that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us, Gary. And it's awesome to hear how people's fathers influence them when it comes to the Denver Broncos and football. But gang, we're going to get out of here for now. We want to, as much as we love talking to you, don't get us wrong. We're not saying, hey, this is getting boring. But when you run out of Broncos topics to talk about and you don't have something pre-prepared lined up, you are better off just hopping off and circling back for more for the next episode. So that's what we're going to do. But gang, please, if you haven't, make sure you like this video before you X on out of here, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching. Give us a like. It really helps in the algorithm. It really helps to hack the social media equation and get this podcast out in front of more like-minded Broncos fans just like you. So take care of that. And another reminder here, guys, make sure you're following the pod on Twitter at HuddleUpPod. You won't miss anything that you need to know as it relates to podcast programming, so long as you're following at HuddleUpPod and also at Mile High Huddle. If you're in a position, check out huddleuppod.com. If not, it's good to have you here. And Zach, have a great start to your week, my friend. And tomorrow night we'll have a lot more to talk about. If we need to, we'll pre-prepare some other topics and really dive deep. But we wanted to focus on Father's Day today and one or two other things and talk to our awesome community. But have a great start to your week, bro.
You as well. And can we get a freaking roster move? Can we get a draft pick signing? Can we get some sort of news that we can sink our teeth in? I'm still, every Sunday going into the new week, I'm still crossing my fingers that we can kind of just have something new to discuss. Hopefully that's tomorrow, though. But regardless, always looking forward to podcasting, Chad. Always looking forward to seeing our listeners and our followers. So see you guys then.
See you guys. Shout out to Bwana Beast. Appreciate everything you do, my friend. Also to James Campbell helping us out in every single chat. And it's late where he's at right now, gang. He's 7 hours ahead. If you're in mountain time right now, he's 7, maybe 8 hours ahead of you in time. So it's late for him, or shall I say wee hours of the morning where he is right now. But gang, we'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Mountain, 8 p.m. Eastern. Have a great start to your week. Happy Father's Day once again to all the awesome dads out there in Broncos country. And then don't forget to follow my partner here on Twitter, Zack Kelberman at Kelberman NFL, myself at Chad and Jensen. We will see you guys tomorrow night, the usual time.